Hi, everybody. This is Saad for the Sad Truth. One of the most fundamental tenets of American justice is that the characteristics, say the religious or racial or ethnic characteristics of a perpetrator and a victim, are not used in deciding guilt or innocence or in deciding punishments when it has been determined that the perpetrator is indeed guilty. Of course, there is racism in the justice system so that people of a particular race might, on average, receive greater penalties. But in terms of an actual institutionalized ethos, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind to these things. Now, of course, this is not what happens in realities throughout the world, whether it be in the justice system or just in the way that societies are organized. So think about, say, the Indian caste system. You have different established castes to which you are born, and you will die as a member of that caste. You're a Brahmin, and then we could go down to the lowest level of society, the untouchables. Think about the hideous nature of slavery systems. At its most basic level, you've got a binary system of free people, slave owners, and slaves. They're not equal in terms of, well, the way society is organized, the way they're viewed by the relevant justice system. Think about what some have called the caste system within Judaism. You've got people who are Kohanim, right? They're Kohen, they're from the Kohen line. So that's the priestly class. You've got the Levies and you've got the Israelites or the Israelis. So during certain religious rituals, only the Kohanim can do them, or only the Kohanim stand up. And so there's a recognition that depending on your lineage, at least for certain religious rituals, not all Jews are created equal. And so there are all sorts of historical contexts where there is institutionalized rejection of the equality of all people. Now let's look at Sharia law. Now this is the Islamic law. So for example, if you've got a caliphate, it is ruled under Sharia law. Now you always get some imam who, in trying to speak to a Western audience, think for example of the infamous Imam Rauf, the so-called Ground Zero mosque guy. He was making appearances all over the Western media saying, oh, when it comes to, the American Constitution and American justice system and Sharia law, they are, almost completely compatible with one another. I mean, you could hardly tell the difference between the two. It's almost impossible to imagine two justice systems that are any more different from one another. And again, I'm going to link all this in a bit to the psychology of social justice warriors. So I have here, and I will put the link at the bottom of the clip, both in Arabic and then the translation of the Reliance of the Traveler, which is a manual, if you like, the definitive manual on Sharia law. And I want to point to two particular passages, so you'll forgive me if I just look away so I can read. So, for example, when you are talking about retaliation, there are certain types of realities that don't permit for retaliation. Let me just read you a few of them. So a child or insane person under any circumstance, you cannot retaliate against them. Well, that's fair enough. We also have that in our justice system. But here's one that doesn't smell of equality. No retaliation when a Muslim kills a non-Muslim. That doesn't sound too good. This is divine Islamic law. This is Sharia law. This is the law that countries like Saudi Arabia view as their guiding justice system. A Muslim killing a non-Muslim you cannot retaliate against it. This is on page 584. You could check it yourself. And then when you're talking about indemnities, when you are paying back someone because you've, let's say, killed somebody, and then you have to sort of pay blood money or so on. Let me just read you here very quickly. The indemnity for the death or injury of a woman is 1/2 the indemnity paid for a man. Doesn't sound like we are big on equality of the sexes. The indemnity paid for a Jew or a Christian is 1/3 of the indemnity paid for a Muslim. The indemnity paid for a Zoroastrian is 1/5 of that of a Muslim. Needless to say, indemnities for non-believers and so on don't matter. This is on page, let me see here, 590. So Sharia law institutionalizes the fact that people are not equal when it comes to navigating through legal issues. Now, how do we link that to social justice warriors? Well, social justice warriors are driven by an ethos of what some have called oppression Olympics. Others have called, and I like this very much, this metaphor, victimology poker, right? Some of you have seen these websites where you could sort of enter a bunch of descriptors and then you get what your oppression or privilege score is, right? The idea is that according to social justice warriors, according to members of the regressive left, according to members of the Ostrich Brigade, people are not equal. Your capacity to experience outrage at injustices is not meted equally across people. And that very much then drives how they view all realities. Now, if we link this to a very current, dreadful reality, the concerted, industrial level sexual attacks in many German cities, well, what you found is that many, sort of leading grotesque social justice warrior types were simply unable. I mean, they just genuinely were unable to condemn the attacks, to point to who were committing these attacks, because they've succumbed to a form of Sharia law, right? To the extent that the perpetrators are members of, in their psychology, a privileged class, a class that you shouldn't criticize, a class that if you criticize, it would trigger racism against them, then screw the women, forgive the pun. Throw them under the bus. Who cares about what happened to them? What we need to do is protect the perpetrators from those rabid anti-immigration KKK Nazi types. So again, you see what happens when a mind is infected with an ethos of non-equality. It could happen in Jewish caste system, as I mentioned earlier. It happened in the Indian caste system. It happens when we have institutionalized slavery. It certainly happens in Sharia law. And regrettably, in the West, as we sit here and ponder over what's happening in the West, Westerners are leading the battle to protect perpetrators because they are viewed as the kings in the oppression Olympics. This is something that needs to be eradicated. This is something that doesn't belong in a secular, liberal society where people are supposed to be all equal under the law. We need to put an end to this, people. Please share this video. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.